Good morning. Good morning. Oh my goodness. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Shalisha. Hi, Shakota. Samantha, Millie. Good morning. Hi, Kwasi. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Coffee with the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness. We are giving folks a few minutes to arrive, and we hope that those of you who are with us on Facebook Live this morning are seeing us broadcasting live now for this very special morning coffee with two local political candidates. But first, good morning again. This is Lisa Payton Kerr, CEO, founder, and president of the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness, coming to you with our FFBWW team on this beautiful Wednesday, July 29th, for another edition of Morning Coffee. We are here today with two local aspiring state Senate candidates, Nada Elmikashfi and Amani Latimer Burris, who will share with us their platforms, their priorities, their reasons for running for office right now. But before we get started, we wanted to remind you to please stay muted. You can leave your cameras on or off, and most importantly, put your questions in the chat. Put your questions in the chat. It's so very important to us to keep coming back to you each week with the topics that you demand and that you write us about and say you want to hear about. And we're always happy and proud that folks show up to be with us. Hey, Angela Davis, good morning. Before we get started too, we want to plug, instead of plugging a weekly small business, this morning, Aaliyah is going to plug another very important event happening in our community that we want to see you all at in September. Go ahead, Aaliyah.
Yes, September 18th and 19th, our two-day virtual summit for Black Women's Wellness Day, our 12th year. Woo-hoo-hoo, that's right. Get excited. I know the secrets of the speakers. Those haven't been announced yet, but you do not want to miss this event. Register now while early bird tickets are on sale. Share with your family and your friends outside of Wisconsin. This is open to everyone, being a virtual summit. And it's about thriving in a new world. It's about resilience. It's about wellness. It will be a fantastic event. So I am going to pop the link in the chat, and we look forward to you joining us.
Yes, for anyone who has attended Black Women's Wellness Day in the past, as our face-to-face event, you know it's an energizing, motivating, just transformational day. We've been challenged, like everyone else, in the midst of COVID-19 to have to recreate and rethink the ways we do our work and the way we host this very awesome event that last year hosted over 700 women and community members. So we're asking you to register now. BlackWomen'sWellnessDay.org, get your tickets, inquire about vendor tables, sponsorships. It's going to be wonderful. And as Aaliyah said, the speakers will blow your mind. They are signing contracts this week. And when we share that information, you're going to want to be in this space. So with that, Aaliyah, I'm going to ask you to, since you have the bios, to formally introduce our two wonderful guests today, who are both candidates for Wisconsin State Senate Seat 26, Nada Elmikashfi and Amani Latimer Burris.
My pleasure. Excited to have these absolutely stellar candidates with us today. Nada earned her bachelor's degree in legal studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison with certificates in environmental studies and entrepreneurship. She was recently appointed by the mayor of Madison, Satya Rhodes-Conway, to serve a 2-year term on Sustainable Madison Committee, a committee that plays a leading role in promoting and setting standards for sustainability in the region. Before stepping down to run for the 26th Senate District, she also served on the staff of Governor Tony Evers on the gubernatorial appointments team, appointing the personnel necessary to serve on approximately 300 statewide boards and commissions across Wisconsin. So we are very excited to have Nada with her wealth of experience here today. We also have Amani Latimer Burris. Amani was born in Madison and raised in Madison and Green Bay. She started out her career as a journalist. She's been a teacher and is a lifelong educator. She's owned several small businesses and most recently left a staffer position within the Wisconsin Democratic Party to run for state Senate. At the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, she was a field and community organizer in both Waukesha and Milwaukee counties, supporting Tom Palswitz, a candidate for U.S. Congress, and Representative Robin Vining, and helped put Jill Krowski in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So another very impressive candidate for District 26. It's going to be a very exciting race.
Yes, and before we get started, we just want to commend both of you for taking a courageous step to run for office. It is a huge commitment of time, it's a huge sacrifice, and it's a huge long-term commitment if you're elected, right? And we know what goes into campaigning, we know what it takes, and knowing both of you, the door-to-door piece we know has been interrupted a bit with COVID-19, so it takes extra effort to get your messages out. And to impress upon people your values and what's important to you. So we thank you for taking this venue as one piece of your outreach to educate all of us as voters. Nada has had challenges with her camera this morning. It kind of went out yesterday, so you can't see Nada, even though she's here with us. And
sorry, everyone.
We were working on trying to maybe get a photo of her up, but we haven't been able to do that. So you will have to visit her website, of course, which we'll drop in the chat in a little bit, to see her beautiful face and to read about her campaign. Also, before we get started, Amani, we all give honor to you and your family on the recent passing of your mother, the Honorable Great Malele Chikasa Anana. Could not start this call without that, as she was such a figure, a community mother to all of us, and we want to give you that's been on all of our minds. We haven't seen you since her passing not so long ago, and her spirit is around all of us today for all she did to make it possible to break down barriers for women, Black women, women of color, to run for office and to lead in our community. So we honor you in honor of her.
Oh Lord, you're gonna get me crying now. Just keep it in politics, and I'm like, yeah, talk about mama, and it's all goodness.
Yeah,
okay,
couldn't start without that. You are so welcome. So let's level set a little bit. Why are we hosting candidates for political office? Let me first say that the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness does not endorse or advocate on behalf of candidates, but we do act as a convener so that Black women and families in the broader community of which we are a part can learn and ask questions as we think about the policies that are most advantageous to our community, that address the issues that we care about, and so we can make informed decisions at the polls when we are choosing candidates. And to us, exercising your vote and being politically aware and active is an essential part of well-being and protecting your well-being. So we must be politically knowledgeable, engaged, and active in exercising our vote. So if you haven't registered to vote, do all those things. We're gonna drop things in the chat. It's critical this year, particularly as we are addressing pre-existing inequities. We're going through a global and localized pandemic, COVID-19, racial inequality, police killings of Black people, shifting culture, in the US, rising tensions. It's a time where we cannot afford to sit out and not vote. This year is crucial, as with all years. So with that, there are 33 Senate districts in Wisconsin. The 26th district, for which both candidates are running, is located in southern Wisconsin and is currently composed of parts of metropolitan Madison and Dane County. The district includes the campus of the UW-Madison as well. It is currently represented by Democratic Senator Fred Risser, who ran unopposed in 2016. I believe he's retiring the seat. And so this is a race that has many, many candidates. I believe you all are 2 of 6 candidates or so.
Seven
Candidates. It's a very crowded seat of candidates. And we will have other candidates on these calls later. This is part 1 of a series. If you're not sure what district you are represented by, visit the link that Aaliyah will put in the chat. And all the information is there that you need. Members of the state Senate serve 4-year terms, so this is a 4-year commitment, and are subject to term limits. Wisconsin state senators on average represent about 172,000 residents each. So these positions for which Nada and Amani are running for represent a lot of people. These are very highly responsible positions that have huge impact on policy, you all, on policies that impact our daily life, socially, economically, educationally, in every aspect of our lives. So it's very crucial that you get to know these two candidates, their positions, and the others. The primary election will happen on August 11th, and the general election is scheduled for November 3rd. To request your absentee ballot to prevent yourself from going physically to any of the offices, Aaliyah will place in the chat the link to where you request an absentee ballot. Move quickly because there are deadlines associated with that. So with all of that being shared and said, we're gonna start with Amani. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you personally passionate about? And who are your role models in running for office or in general?
Yeah, so one thing I want to emphasize before I say that is that on this is a one and done race. On August 11th, whoever wins this primary is going to be the senator because that person just has to vote for themselves. And so the question is about me personally, and then who are my role models? And I want to make sure that I pick up on the last question, that if I don't catch it, we'll come back to it. So about me personally, I am first a mom to two beautiful kids that I'm trying to raise in Madison, Wisconsin, and make them feel like they are completely whole as people. I am married to Rick Burris, and we've been together for about 26 years. And he is a public defender for the state of Wisconsin. Obviously, and maybe not so obvious, my mother is a role model for me. She instilled who I am. I suppose sometimes when we got into battles, it's because I'm just like her. And now that she's gone, I realize the impact that she's really, really had on me. But also, people that I meet in everyday life are my role models as well, because I know as a Black woman and as Black women, we hold so many roles. We hold down so many roles, and we go through so many different struggles. So the fact that we can get through things, we can hold our families together, that we can accomplish things is amazing. And so to your point, Lisa, about getting into life and doing our things late in life, I think sometimes that's because we get weighted with so many different aspects in life and have so many different challenges that, like, you know, when we're 50, we're really like 30. So I think I covered everything that you asked.
Yes, thank you for that. Nada, could you tell us, what are you personally passionate about, and who are some of your role models as you took this journey to lead in this way?
Awesome. Thank you for that question. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here with us and listening to us. My name is Nada Elmikashfi. I'm a longtime resident of Madison, Wisconsin. I immigrated here from Sudan, Africa when I was 6 years old, have gone to public schools here at UW-Madison, and now I'm running for this seat. And so for me, you know, my personal experience with blended identities has really informed the person I am. It has informed my passion to really fight for those in my communities that haven't been represented in the Capitol. I've worked as an organizer here in Madison, knocking doors. And so when I worked for the governor, I realized that there was a disconnect between the people that I saw on the ground and the people in office. And so it really motivated me to look at, you know, gaps in leadership that I wasn't informed about beforehand. I had expected that the people in office were fighting for us when, you know, they haven't even bothered to show up in however long. I know Senator Risser has been in the seat for 57 years. I declared against him in January, and he has since retired. So that passion to fight for exactly what we deserve really moves me and informs my decision making. I get that from my mom. She's taught me how to blend kindness with accountability, how to, navigate this world as a Black woman without letting it, wear down your spirit and kind of lift it. And so for me, she's my biggest role model. Yeah, thank you.
You are so welcome. So both of you have been highly politically involved and engaged. So you're bringing experience into this race, and I'm assuming a wide perspective on the issues. Madison and Dane County is the tale of two cities. This has been well documented. The best place to live for some, the worst place for others, statistically speaking, and that's been confirmed through numerous local and national reports. On the surface, a very liberal community who struggles really to practice what racial equality means. What do you see as the unique challenges for District 26 around equity and balancing this tale of two cities as a major issue of concern for our community, and how will you address them, Amani?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like everything is layered with race, right? And we are layered with being women. We are layered with being moms. So I didn't see fully the tale of two cities until I lost $4.2 million as Malele's daughter and ended up living in Super 8. When I went through that experience, I totally got it. When I went to the food pantry, I totally got the tale of two cities. And as a matter of fact, it's a tale of two cities, and then there's oppression, because when I arrived at the food pantry, it was a really bad day. I had been fighting the banks. I fought 5 banks for 10 years. And I remember being at the food pantry and the woman acting as if I was trying to scam food. And I thought, oh my goodness, every day is a struggle beyond what I even could imagine. So I think that we need to work on economic dignity, and from there we will be able to affect change in voting dignity, in policing reform, in education, in healthcare, and all the things that we fight for. With my mom, being sick for the past 6 years, even that she's a prominent person in the community, I would have to fight for her life, literally, in the healthcare system. So I think all around we need to start a base with economic dignity. What that means is food on the table, a place to live, to have be able to go to get healthcare, to be able to cover the basics. And then in small business as another thing. Under COVID-19, I went to Bernie Nichols and to check into how these guys are doing. They have invested a lot in what trying to grow their business, and all of a sudden they're shut down. So I'm aware of that. I'm concerned about that, and I want to do something about that.
Yes, Nada. And I realized I skipped a question, but kind of the two questions are merged together. What do you see as the unique challenges to District 26 as we address racial inequality and general inequity, and how will you address them if you win the seat?
Yeah, growing up, my family as a low-income Black immigrant family, we moved around Madison a lot, and I kind of growing up had assumed that was American tradition, that you move apartments every couple of months, every couple of years, and it wasn't really until I got into politics was I able to kind of conceptualize and articulate the experience that my family and many other in the community that looked like me went through, which was incredible gentrification and displacement that was perpetuated by an affordable housing crisis that continues on till this day. And so for me, looking at the policy that was passed in the Senate in comparison to what was happening here in Madison really showed that the working class, particularly communities of color, were not reflected in the laws that we were passing through. And I saw an inherent problem in the Democratic caucus that really missed the mark on an incredible racial equity. And so that was highlighted by one bill, Senate Bill 440, that gave developers tax breaks to develop in areas of low incomes and high unemployment, without having any community review guidelines for apartment buildings being affordable. And so we saw a real-time, real-life gentrification and eviction crisis really happening, and that was co-sponsored by Representative Chris Taylor, a progressive. And so within the Democratic caucus, I saw this lack of leadership and a kind of disconnection between the communities that I was door knocking and asking to go vote, and then the, you know, Senator Risser and the Democratic caucus. And so for me, I see an inherent complacency within the Capitol that really kind of informs the fact that Wisconsin has become the most segregated state in the country, right? Democrats had a trifecta between 2008 and 2010. And so they controlled every single, chamber of the Capitol, the governorship, assembly, legislature, yet we are doing worse, right, in racial equity in the entire country. And so I think that speaks to a lack of lived experience within the Capitol. I think it speaks also to the fact that we haven't held our representatives accountable to the people, that the Senate seat hasn't been filled with someone who understands the value of showing up to communities and saying, you know, how do I help you, right? What haven't you had, and how can I get you there? And so for me, it was a question of, you know, do I need permission to lead? Do I need permission to heal my communities in places where our leadership has failed? And so for me, I think a voice in the Capitol that, you know, really integrally and inherently kind of understands racial injustices here, that understands the enormity of the housing crisis, how that's tied into, you know, economic dignity, like Amani put it, how we really need to close the gaps, not in educational achievement, but educational opportunity, right? Someone who understands the nuances within, communities of color, within Black communities, that really hopefully will inform truly progressive, truly encompassing policy. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, that's powerful. Both of you have spoken to so many powerful issues, and I'm going to go back to a question that I skipped, and it's really just acknowledging how non-diverse our state Senate is. We have in our state, you know, as you said, Nada, and this is in our speeches that we give all across the community every day, that Wisconsin ranks highest in the nation for racial inequality, highest in the nation for educational achievement gap, highest for wealth gaps, highest Black infant mortality, highest racial health disparity. So if you look at disparity in about every category or measure, we rank top in the nation. Yet our Senate is primarily white and male. As Black women, what does that mean for you as Black women running for office in a state Senate that does not represent our state's population, and so very often does not, or most often does not represent the issues of greatest concern to our communities? What will you bring to that? And we'll start with you, Nada, and then go back to Amani.
Yeah, I think my lived experience informs the prioritization. I think lived experience begets prioritization in any profession, specifically the Capitol. For me, that was highlighted in one experience that I had in the governor's office, where I was the only Black woman in the Madison office. So walking through every day, and all white staff who were well-meaning, I didn't realize the burden that it had on my soul, on my spirit as a Black woman, until, you know, a couple days before I stepped down to run for office, when I decided I had to say something, right? I had to fight for what I knew was incredibly important, which was diversity. And so I wrote an email to the chief of staff that really showcased first of all, the necessity, and second, the fact that this was not a suggestion, but an incredible, you know, boundary where they had to do better. And so for me, really getting paid internship, internships in the Capitol were integral to diversity, and that was the first step, and it was tremendously difficult to get it through. And so the excuses would be, Republicans won't give us funding, but when Maggie Gow invited me in and we talked for an hour, I told her that this was a priority. It was a priority for me, who got, so many of my Black friends to door knock for the governor. We were promised this incredible progressive future for Wisconsin, and even in the staff, that wasn't represented, that wasn't reflected. And so showing her that was my priority, I think really lit the fire under her feet. 2 months after I left office, the governor's office administration unveiled a statewide, administrative-wide paid part-time and full-time internship geared at diversity. And so for me, it was like, well, where was all the Republican obstructionism you were talking about for years, right? So when it became a priority for a Black woman within the office to say, hey, y'all aren't doing this right, y'all are not serving, in truly a progressive light, they understood the gravity. And so for me, I think that is what we bring as Black women to any table, right? We fight for our communities. We bring in that prioritization that clearly hasn't had before. And so hopefully I want to continue to do that, to expand the table, not just bring my own chair in, and kind of take over it, because I think it's about damn time. Thank you.
We agree. We completely agree. Amani, as a
Yeah.
Black woman, infiltrating a very un-Black, non-Black, and very, we do take our hat off for Senator Lena Taylor, Senator LaTanya Johnson in Milwaukee. We have State Representative Sheila Stubbs, the first Black state representative representing Dane County in our legislature. First seems to have come very late. We're in the 20th century, 21st century. What will you bring to the table as a Black woman leading in the Senate?
Yeah, so I will bring you. I will bring my experiences. I will bring my grounding. I was not in the front of politics, although I've worked on campaigns from Stubbs to Falk and went on the presidential level working for Buttigieg. And so I got to the room at 49 and I looked around and I saw Barbara McKinney and Sheila Stubbs, and I said, where are all the Black people? And this is at Dane Dems. And as I've gone and I've spent time in this, and I was one of the few Black women as a staffer for the Wisconsin State Party, the Democratic Party. It was a position that I had to go through 8 interviews to get. And they sent me down to Waukesha, which is Republican territory, Scott Walker territory, Fitzgerald territory. And so what I found down there is that we need to be united. So we need to build coalitions with other groups, because when we're in there, just because we go in there and say, this is our experience and these are what you need to do. I mean, we've been telling them this about the social justice and policing reform for decades. So we have to build coalitions. We have to reach across the aisle. We have to advocate. Now, when we reach across the aisle, it doesn't mean that I don't have to become myself. It just means that we've got to get in there and work together. I would love to just get in there and fight. And I know that we'll get shut down. So the other part of my job is education and advocacy. And what that means is letting you know things like we are in the minority. And so for the first 2 years, we're not going to pass one bill. What we're going to try to do is we're going to try to advocate for our positions, and we're going to try to change people and how they see us, just like Umoja did, right? Over time, Umoja changed how Black people are seen. So we didn't have the same problem that they had in South Bend, Indiana with under Buttigieg, where, the first question I asked when I went down there to investigate that is, do you guys have a Umoja? So, and they didn't. And why that's important is because how people perceive you is how people react to you. You guys know this. We live this every single day. We live a tale of 2 cities, a tale of 2 lives. We're always having to adjust. And so I know that with my experience and understanding what's really going on I feel like I can make a difference. I feel like because I'm from Green Bay, it's finally paying off. I can go up to Green Bay and get the coalition up in Green Bay to, to find, knowing people in Green Bay, what they care about. And we are at a time right now that we need to do that across the board. Because if we just get in there and just start knocking things out, which you guys know I can do, you will get shut down. You will absolutely get shut down. We will not get things passed. We will be in a worse position.
Yeah, so what we're hearing is there is massive complexity. There are many, many issues. There are nuances to leadership. And one point I really like to make is that we ask questions about your positioning and what you'll bring as Black women, but we know that you're leading as people and as leaders first, right, who happen to be Black women. And that in and of itself comes with nuances and life experience and perspective that really enriches and broadens what our state leadership is capable of leading on. And so I just want to state for the record, though we ask questions about your leadership and experience as Black women, we're often pigeonholed as Black leaders, right? And Black candidates. We are candidates and leaders for our entire community and our entire state, representing everyone and representing issues that everyone cares about while driving home issues of racial equality, which also impact everyone and is everyone's responsibility. With that, Aaliyah, there's a question that you wanted to ask as well.
I'm just reflecting on the last election, that our community had to choose between their health and their right to vote. And I'm just wondering, considering we're still in the midst of, and in fact, a growing COVID-19 response where our neighboring states are considering cutting off our transportation, what do you say to our community who is and having to navigate those decisions right now and understanding how important our vote is?
I guess I'll go on this first. Yeah, so I was there in April 7th, working on the Jill Karofsky campaign, and I was able to up the numbers. I think it's because people saw me as a human being down in Waukesha and, realized that we have the same, we're fighting for the same thing, the right to breathe, the right to put food on our table, the right to have a place to live, whether it be you're renting, in affording, or you want to keep your house as you go through difficulties. And we've got to reach out into community and let people know how to vote, how to get over all the obstacles. It would be great if they could just send the absentee ballot to everybody, and that's going to be a whole nother fight. So our lives have become totally politicized. Everything, our health has become politicized. Our ability to earn a wage, politicized. The fact that we're Black women, politicized. The right to vote. We went over this. My mom marched in Washington for this, and we're back at it again. So I think what it is, and this is a big part of the job, is advocating that people and educating people about what is really going on. We have got to get out and vote. We cannot be slacktivists. We cannot just be on Facebook and Twitter making comments. We got to get out there and vote. You guys, this is like, we're on the edge here. And if you only knew how close we were to re-electing Trump, which we all know what that means, right? We're the first ones to go. We're the first ones to be out. You would get all of your neighbors, all of your friends, all the people you don't even like out to vote, as long as they're going to vote in the right direction. So it's critical. And then over time, we will change the voting laws to make it more accessible. We will listen.
Yeah, I think this pandemic has really shown how the safety nets in our political kind of and economic and social fabric are torn, and they've never been strong enough to uplift the working class of Wisconsin, the people of color, the Black communities within the state. So for me, I'd like to apologize that the government has failed us and has put us in an impossible, position of choosing between our civic duty and our right to survive and our health. And I think it speaks to a larger Republican obstructionism. Robin Vos has completely rejected bringing the legislature back in session in order to pass economic packages to save our small businesses, to save our community members that are unemployed and facing incredible housing, insecurity, while he takes a $100,000 to $300,000 loan from the federal government for his popcorn business of however 3-4 many employees. And so I think this speaks to the fact that we need to reclaim our government, and we need to make sure that we are taking agency in our own healing, in our own thriving within Wisconsin. And I think that only comes if we participate within the democratic process. And I've seen a disenchantment of our communities with the Democratic Party, because to be honest, we have not seen that same level of service that they have given to white communities, to affluent, rich communities. And I think for me, for a long time, that disenchantment kind of really translated into frustration and pain that kept me away from politics. But I think that is right, the tool that they operate with, that is part of the disenfranchisement. They do not want you to vote, and so I think for that sole reason you do go out and vote. And I think that we truly have a say in our government if we take that initiative, if we also take the initiative of being educators, to really let people know why it is important, what is up for grabs and what is at stake. I know so many people in my own family didn't even know that we had a state senate, and so this kind of lack of information is the tool they use to not only gatekeep us from the political process, but to gatekeep us from our own rights. So in 2020, I ran 2 campaigns, one for Dane County Board Supervisor, one for City Council, and both won. And we took the decision of not door knocking during COVID because it would directly endanger the people in this community, but through phone banking, through relational organizing. So, talking to our friends and family and having them talk to their friends and family was a really great way where we encourage getting out the vote. So to any extent that you can do that from the safety of your own home, from the comfortability of a Zoom screen, you are doing so much for your democracy and so much for your community. So please register to vote. Please, vote safely from home. You can request your absentee ballot now and return it by August 6th. And that's literally the extent of it. And so the fact that we can do that as well, I'm from Sudan, Africa, where running for office as a woman would have been a death sentence. So for me, I don't take this civic duty lightly. And I think that we're all waking up to its importance. So I'm hopeful.
Wow, so many critical points that you're both making. And some folks had really responded to, Amani, what you said. We're all fighting for the right to breathe. Our lives have become politicized. So the whole, what we're seeing now locally and nationally in the response to the Black Lives Matter movement, which is being confounded and confused with rioting and looting and anti-government or anarchy, which we know is all incorrect and not the purpose of the movement. Just asking for protection under the same laws, just asking for protection from police brutality, just asking for police reform so that George Floyd's don't happen, or equity, so that Trayvon Martin's or Breonna Taylor's don't happen in our country and in our local communities, Tony Robinson incidents, in addition to all of the social, economic, educational, justice, criminal justice issues that we're battling for, the right to live and breathe. We are hearing people say what else in the chat, Aaliyah?
We're hearing just a lot of critical yes and amens to what's being said here, and just a really engaged group of participants today that are get out and vote, we're on the edge, just really encouraging each other that this is life or death, literally for our community. And so just understanding the weight and the power of our local elections as well as our national elections, we need to show up for both.
If I could just say something, I wanted to say something, how deep this goes. We've got to ignore absolutely everything that is what Lisa's saying, where it's like people get confused. about Black Lives Matter and what that means and who's running that. And we also have to ignore anybody that wants to come in and co-opt what we've been doing. I mean, my parents fought for the right to vote, and their parents, my grandparents, were the ones that had to go through the poll taxes and buy property and do all this crazy stuff just to have the right to vote. And what concerns me on a local level is, once I got into politics, and I've only been in politics about a year and a half in the front, in the front line, is that I go to local meetings, local progressive meetings, and they are talking about South Madison and Black people in South Madison, and there's not a Black person in the room. That has got to change. That has got to change. They're going to decide what's going to happen for you, and they are going to decide. You are going to become a talking point. And that's what I absolutely refuse to do in this campaign. I'm not going to sit down and run some speech that has been pulled off the internet or has been co-opted for some other place. I am going to speak from my heart, knowing that A plus B has to happen. We've got to get in the room and we've got to learn to work with other people. I am not a tagline. I am not a political speech. I am not a policy that you decided to pontificate because you wanted to get my vote. I am a human being with kids, with a need to breathe, with a need to eat, with a need to have a place to live, with a need to take care of my mom that has served this community for decades. And so you guys have to get that point. Everybody has to get the point, is to ignore the noise and go and vote. Your life is on the line.
So with that being stated, and this is off script, but certainly should have been a question that we asked, knowing how crucial and how critical our vote is, and knowing and seeing the incredible efforts undertaken, by, Republican forces in the legislature and to suppress our vote, to create policies and roadblocks. There's different types of, things passed around the type of identification you have to have, and no, not this type, the other type, and how we saw the voting happening in April with decisions at the last minute to open or not open the polls and how many polls were going to be open. How do we address voter suppression going forward when we don't seem to have a solution and where we are outpowered right now in terms of majority versus minority presence in the legislature? How do we fight that? Nada.
Yeah. So I, have seen the Senate budget process up close, being in the same room. And what I've seen is that there is incredible Republican obstructionism. They hold the majority. So, their votes they outnumber Democrats. And so there's many important bills that can't be passed because they just refuse to. And so Democrats have gotten complacent with that. They throw their hands in the air and kind of, hide their lack of initiative, their lack of racial, justice kind of prioritization, with Republicans won't let us do that. And so they speak gerrymandering, which is true across the state of Wisconsin, like it is completely, unbeatable, which is it's false in its premise. And I know this as an organizer who's traveled around Wisconsin. There are so many communities that haven't been activated to vote in districts that can be flipped by 40 votes, right, to be Democratic. And so any person who's walking into this legislature needs to understand that their time has to be primarily kind of involved within the communities in the state, to say, I am one of you. I will be held accountable to your needs. Here's how to vote. Here's why you should vote. And I truly believe that you can have a Democratic majority within the next couple of years if you truly, start to engage and serve the community. And so that speaks to the idea that, what we deserve, a really better Madison for everyone, isn't an impossibility. What it needs is a lack of, what it needs is initiative, and kind of an understanding that when it comes to racial equity, when it comes to racial justice, we deserve the entire 9 yards. And I think that is the core of the complacency we see now. And I think that's what's missing. And so if we really want to make sure to take back the Capitol, It's not going to be done by the same tired ways that the Democratic Party, you know, does it. It needs to be people-based. It needs to be a movement. It's totally a movement moment. And I think that many organizations around Wisconsin are waking up to that. I got so endorsed by Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin, by the American Federation of Teachers, by MTI, groups that in their endorsement letters, you know, mention the fact that racial justice is this moment right now, is our priority in the next 4 years. And these are establishment groups. These are groups that are primarily white membership. And so I think it speaks to the fact that the rest of Wisconsin is waking up to our new priorities and understanding that it is a movement moment in the next 4 years. So there's a lot of at stake, and it's a burden for all of us to carry, but it also gives hope in the midst of all the pain that has happened these past few months.
Amani, how do we fight voter suppression?
Yeah, so let me say that just because I want to get that out there as well. I was endorsed by Mayor Soglin and the Blacks for Political and Social Action of Dane County, which if you research it, it is the Black leaders, a lot of the Black leaders in Madison. And I was their, I do believe I was their sole endorsement. So look, I was not complacent on April 7th, okay? Jill Karofsky was the numbers behind the scenes, the numbers were that she was probably not going to win. It was going to be really tight. And we upped those numbers. So what do we do in April 7th? We got out there and got into the media, and we're on it, countering the things that they were saying and letting people know. So that's information, education, letting people know that their right to vote was at stake. We changed the methods on the fly of how we're going to reach people to vote. So they set up in Milwaukee, where I was, Milwaukee and Waukesha County together, because I was following the candidates I spoke about earlier. We set up drive-through stations. We called. We had 7, well, I actually shouldn't say the number, but we had a lot of people calling, reaching out into different communities, hitting up people's cell phones, letting them know. And then we did a huge push for the first time, the biggest push for the first time, to really up the absentee ballot numbers. And so I did not do that by myself. We did it as a group, united, and we did it with integrity. And so it's under Ben Wickler, who's a new, and we're getting down into the nitty gritty, into the nuances here. He's a new leader in the Democratic Party. You know, he gets it. You know, he gets it. And he's open to conversations about things that we actually need to do. So when you go and you're like, this is not working, this needs to change, we're able to do that. What I'm concerned about is some of the folks that you think are in your corner and advocating for you are the same ones that will hold a meeting without you, nobody in there, are the same ones that you know, could have reached out to you before to say, we really want you to vote. It's going to be up to us to change that. It's going to be up to us to listen. It's going to be up to us to analyze. It's going to be up to us to really understand what is going on. I am 50. Well, now I'm 51. And so I get it. And my mom was in politics when she started her career here. And we talked about it before she passed. And she's like, it's going to be a fight. They're going to come after you. You're an outsider, so they don't like that. You can't be boss. They don't like that either. But you can do this, Amani. And she didn't have the tolerance. I think I had the tolerance. I think I have the ability to work across the aisle, to see other points of view, because that's in my heart, right? I understand that my life is my life and other people's lives are their lives. So I think that is a skill that I can bring to the table. I don't think it's bashing the Democrats all the way, or just being, you know, only in this one little camp. You gotta go diversity. We gotta win this in diversity, and we will change things. I hear you guys, I hear myself, I will represent, but I also know that we gotta work together.
Yes, both of you have spoken to something, and it's kind of repeated itself throughout this conversation that, and I made this comment the other day, that within the Democratic Party, and I'm speaking personally now, not in terms of the foundation, for those who vote Democrat, there has been a concern over the many years of needing to look within party for a lack of accountability, as you both have said, and a lack of an exciting agenda other than fighting Republicans. What are we doing? What is the Democratic Party doing other than fighting Republicans? What are our policy positions that are transformational? How are we locally really driving economic opportunity? How are we dealing with our housing crisis that is disproportionately hurting low-income, moderate-income people? How are we addressing health disparities, education disparities, all those people-centered issues that particularly in Wisconsin go unresolved? How are we pushing for criminal justice reform? How are we working to look at the new direction out of COVID-19 and all of the unrest as we're kind of sitting at a standstill? We see lots of discussion about what Republicans are doing or what this party is doing or what's not being done, but what is the Democratic Party doing? What are they putting in front of voters that is transformational, that will push unmotivated voters, people who are sick and tired of the whole setup and feel like it doesn't work for them regardless of party, which is also a part of activating and mobilizing the vote that I've heard you say when we talked about there's suppression, and then there's people we just haven't appealed to and just haven't reached and engaged. Much of that is because they don't feel that it will work for them. How are we moving things to work for people when they give the gift of their vote, that something will change in their quality of life? Nada.
Yeah, I think the short answer of what is the Democratic Party doing is nothing. And I see that every day working in organizing. They do not see value in our vote. They do not see themselves held accountable to who we are. And so naturally their policies and their priorities do not reflect our key issues. And I think that's seen within certain policies. For example, they push for healthcare for all without really looking at the intricate policy that they could be passing right now and working on and fighting for that could save so many lives. And one example of that is the federal inmate Medicaid exclusion policy, where if you are incarcerated 90 days after you're released, you do not have access to healthcare. You are completely kicked off of your Medicaid, Medicare chip. And so that's a federal bill, but what Wisconsin can do is move from a state that terminates healthcare to one that just suspends it. And so there are Republicans that I know that are interested in a bipartisan bill like that. And it is truly life-saving for so many, even under this pandemic. It reduces recidivism rates, and it helps so many people that go through our criminal injustice system to regain life-saving treatment immediately after release. And so I understood that because I talked to a nurse in Wisconsin, in Madison, who brought this to my attention. And so because these representatives and these senators do not engage with the community, they do not get a very good look at the issues and understand what is prioritized. And that is something that we're working on. And I think the Democratic Party really misses the concept of talking to your constituents, talking to all of your constituents is the way that you truly make your party stronger and really push your priorities through. And so I truly believe that people hold agency, and that they hold agency in solving the problems that they live in, and that they are the best representative for that. And so any politician really should embody this idea of being a megaphone for people's concerns. It's not a Nada show. It's not anyone's show. It's the people's voice. We just yell it for them, and they advocate through us for themselves. And so for me, a second half of that is that there is an inherent racism within the Democratic Party. And so I got in a bit of a Twitter mess with Senator Tim Carpenter, who represents one of the most diverse districts in Milwaukee, with the lowest voter turnout in the entire state. And he also co-authored the 2011 voter ID suppression bill under Scott Walker. And so he was incredibly patronizing and abusive when I criticized the bill that he just kind of introduced to expand our criminal injustice system and criminalize, bringing down statues. And so there was a disrespect that he talked to me with. There was an anti-Blackness and a racism that informed his words. And so, for me, it was really about the Democratic caucus itself, understanding that, they have to understand that they serve not just themselves, but the larger Black community is incredibly important. And so when I got on a call with Senator Bewley and Ben Wickler, who apologized, I told them that their apology means nothing if they don't enact real racial justice training within the Capitol for the Senate Democratic caucus. Because I truly believe that in terms of racial justice, an equal barrier, if not a bigger barrier, is the Democratic Party and not just Republicans. And so I think we have to do an internal look at ourselves as a party to really realize where the root of our injustices are. And I'm really happy to say that Senator Bewley promised me that bill wouldn't see the light of day. They're instituting racial justice workshops within the Senate Democratic caucus, and now it's a priority for any representative in the Capitol to hold them accountable to that, because sometimes they say one thing and then they do the other. So we do need to hold the Democratic Party accountable in the grand scheme of things for the shortcomings that they've had, while also having a hopeful kind of mix into that we learn from our past and that we move forward in healing, not necessarily in revenge or in negativity. So we'll see, but I'm excited. Yeah.
Yes, Amani, what would you add to that? And after you answer this, we're going to take 2 audience questions and wrap up. It's hard to believe that it's 9:58 a.m. How did the time move that quickly? But what would you add to our own internal work in the Democratic Party?
Yeah, so we're not going to get rid of the Democratic Party. We're not going to just start a new party called the Progressive Party, although I am a progressive. It is going to, the reality is, it is going to take time. When Mayor Soglin, and I supported Mayor Soglin, and I talked to some of you that are in the audience in a deep manner of why I did, that I wasn't just buying the talking points. Because when we got to Madison, they burned a cross on our front lawn, okay? So now we're out of the cross burning era and we're into the new era. And we've got to definitely engage in community. We got to unite. We got to look at different perspectives, but do not buy into a false choice where it's like, we're just going to go in there and throw everything out. It's what I said on the presidential level. What America wants, what the state wants, what we want locally. We want 2 things. We want restoration, and that means Trump's out, and anybody that represents that, anybody that just represents that fight. That, we're not going to listen to anybody. It's my way or the highway. And then we also want a revolution, and we got a revolution. It's called COVID-19, because in COVID-19, I can start to see your problems, and you can start to see my problems. And we can say, all right, we are the solution in the problems. We are the ones wearing the mask. We are staying home. We have shut down our businesses. We have tried to live off of effectively $400 a month when you put the $1,200 over 3 months. And we can be, now we have the opportunity to be part of the solution. And the reality is the legislature is just like Madison. If you look around who controls Madison and what those faces look like, you know that you need to figure out, and you get this when you get on executive level, you get that you have to learn how to negotiate and maneuver and work with people and not bash people and jump on people, especially as a Black woman. That's what they're looking for us to do, jump on people, bash them. And the same people that will have us out there bashing people and jumping on them are working in the background to put the candidate in that they want to have in. If we're going to have a say, then let's just have a say. So I don't want to buy into false choices, taglines, co-opting or any of that other business. I want to get in there, do the work. I know who I am. And I will bring that perspective. And it's not just race, it will be the economic perspective. Because you saw me on the days I was not well and just barely had anything to eat. I get it.
There's so much to talk about. There's so much to cover. Our goal today was to get to know the candidates, but of course we're hearing and seeing in the chat that folks have so many questions that we're not going to be able to answer today, but we will have you guys back. And we say that every week because every week everyone wants all the guests back, but we will have you all back along with other candidates, because I think what we need now is substantive questions. You know, I have questions about housing policy as we see families in Dane County really fighting to remain housing secure. We have an economic opportunity gap that has never been adequately addressed. And with COVID-19, we are seeing major impacts on Black, brown, low income, and middle class families, you know, as businesses are shuttered, as employers are still struggling, as major corporations are struggling and making decisions about staffing. We are seeing major economic challenges. We don't like to use the word gentrification in our community, but gentrification is happening on the south side and on the east side as we see big developments popping up. We are seeing, you know, apartments that everyday working people or young students can't afford. We're seeing people priced out of the south side in a community that used to be fully identified as the Black community. There are many, many issues of concern that we have about that, alongside health disparities, Black mortality, maternal mortality, criminal justice reform, given that Wisconsin leads the nation in the over-incarceration of Black men, increasingly women, young people, starting in the juvenile justice system, and so many other critical issues. We will need to have a part 2. So we're letting you know now. We're running a little over, but there's an audience question that Aaliyah wants to ask, and then we'll ask you for your final wrap-up comment that you want folks to hear before they sign off and before we close. Go on, Aaliyah.
We have a lot of really great questions and suggestions for moving forward, but for the matter of time, I'll take the first question that came in from Ms. Corinda Rainey Moore. If elected to serve, what is the one thing you hope to change?
I love that question. For me, I really like looking at intricate policies that can change people's lives. And so I've been talking with a couple stakeholders and experts about a residual income model for housing instead of a 30% standard of affordability that is really based in an arbitrary 18th century saying that has no reflection on what affordability looks like right now in Madison. And so looking at how much a family spends on food, on transportation, on healthcare, on childcare, and then looking at what's left as the standard of affordability, I think brings us into modernity and really helps us kind of start solving and looking at how we you know, tackle this housing crisis in a way that really speaks to the true reality of families here. And so standing up for tenant rights, tenant protections is incredibly important, because I think housing is the base of what we, excuse me, I got a call. Housing is the basis of the rest of so many kids' lives. And so if we have housing security, we can really start chipping away at the inequities and the lack of opportunity within our education system, you know, within so many other systems that keep, you know, Black kids down, that keep Black families down. And so for me, really being a housing first senator is incredibly important. You know, talking with stakeholders in the community, knowing that I, you know, am a megaphone only is incredibly important to me. So that is, I think, my first day in office. My one of my first priorities is looking at, you know, residual income models and completely reimagining how we're looking at housing affordability, because quite honestly, it's not working. Looking at an immediate moratorium of rent hikes is so important. You know, my mom is being priced out of her apartment right now rent has increased 23% in the past 5 years alone. And so when you have a landlord as the speaker for the assembly, when you have real estate agents and developers making these laws, of course you're not going to get tenant protection. So being a fighter for tenant rights, being a fighter for housing first policy, solving homelessness within the first couple of years is so incredibly important to me, because this is the richest country on earth, right? They can solve all these problems without blinking, and so it's a matter of saying, hey, this is our priority, and because it is our priority, it is yours now. So that is what I'm really excited to get working on in the first 100 days.
Awesome. Amani.
Yeah, so it's economic dignity. That is why I got into politics. I spent 15,000 hours in Wisconsin Statute 846. These books here, I've gone through them. I fought 10 years. In that statute, if you don't know it, it informs evictions, tenant rights, homeowner rights, affordability, stability. And we don't have anything in those statutes, because I've read them and I spent 15,000 hours studying them, arguing them, going into it deep. You will know when you read that we have no rights. So we're expected to have all the responsibility without any rights, and that is not freedom. So I am about economic dignity, which means economic freedom. And then when I get that done, which will take time, it will not happen immediately. There's no way. We are not in the majority. We're about to become in the super minority if we don't do something about it. But over time, I will move from that to small business, because that's where we can make a difference. As a descendant from Black Wall Street, my parents were raised on Black Wall Street. My uncle Shakespeare and my Aunt Joby were there in 1921, and when folks went in and burned the houses down, took all the business stuff, put them in internment, and then denied all of the insurance payments, so people had to rebuild. I come from those roots. I get it. My mom is gone. I get it. Time to step up to the plate. And so after going through all of that mess, that hot mess, all the way up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, back down to the circuit court, I said to my husband, Rick, I can either put my experience on the shelf and go back to my middle class life, or I can do something. So here I am.
That's wonderful. Well, with that, we want to thank Amani and Nada for joining us today. The thing that I heard you both say just now in terms of initial priorities, amongst all the priorities, is winning the election, is ousting the current administration. So getting out the vote is crucial. I think everyone on this call and listening on Facebook Live is clear that casting your vote is crucial this year. It is a matter of survival or not surviving our current conditions. And we also heard tremendous commitment to economic security, economic integrity being the root of how we stabilize families and children and build independence, so that we are not victimized by systems and policies and the sways of politics in our community.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead. Sorry, Nada, did you say something?
No, I said because I'm snapping over here.
Okay, good. We're all snapping. So with that, we want to thank everyone who tuned in today, everyone who is watching here and on Facebook Live. We see many, many requests for a follow-up. This was so powerful. Thank you, ladies, for running for office. Thank you for committing your time. We really love the love that they have for both of you. Again, anyone who's stepping into the political space to take on the responsibility of leading in public office, we take our hats off to both of you. We wish you both well in your campaigns. We ask folks to please visit their campaign sites. Amani, shout out your site.
Yeah, it's Amani for Wisconsin. Yeah, AMANI FOR. You can hit the digit 4, Wisconsin, fully spelled out. AmaniForWisconsin.com.
Awesome. If we can put that in the chat. And Nada, your site is Nada for Wisconsin. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. I put it in the chat as well.
Awesome.
That is also my Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram. All of it is the same title. Yep.
Beautiful. So a reminder to you all today to visit blackwomen'swellnessday.org and get your tickets for our upcoming annual event. We are asking you to exercise your vote. We are asking you to mask up. Mask up Dane County, mask up Madison. This is our current best defense against the community spread of COVID-19. And this is a plug to everyone as you begin to venture out for your days. That's all that takes. That's all it
I need
takes.
one of those. I need one of those.
We've got one for you. We've got one for you. Yes. And with that, know thyself, love thyself, heal thyself. Our wellness and our power starts with us. We have what we need. And with that, we will see you back here next week. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. Everybody, take good care.
Thank you, everyone. Love the
You're
mask.
so
Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.